it's not something outside of you that is seeking your attention. It's not a new job. It's not another child or less children. It's something inside of you that is seeking your energy and attention. And it's okay. It's okay to get purpose and value from our work. But when it's no longer sustainable and it's burning you out, that's when we have to shift things. Attention, women in business. If I asked you this question, would you have an answer? Do you feel confident knowing how to grow your business while also feeling more alive and energized? If you answered no and your business is generating a minimum of $50,000 a year, I have a limited time opportunity you'll regret missing. It's called the Revenue Breakthrough Challenge, and it's for women who are done feeling stuck in their business and ready to attract more money in a short amount of time. And guess what? It's only $197. But here's the catch. There are strings attached. It's by application only, and you have until June 17th to apply. All the details are found at Heather Chauvin, that's CHAUVIN.com/money. HeatherChauvin.com/money. So why am I even doing this and guaranteeing results, or I'll give you your money back? Because I think we have a unique challenges while raising children and growing our businesses. And I believe that when you achieve a quick money win, you're going to gain more confidence in yourself, knowing that your dreams are possible and that you can do both successfully. It's my job to challenge you and to show you how to make your dreams a reality, all while being the mother you desire to be. So like I said, if you are a woman in business and your business is generating at minimum $50,000 a year, head on over to heatherchauvin.com/money. I am literally doing this because I want to help women make more, feel more, so that they can give back and make a bigger impact in the world. heatherchauvin.com/money. You have until June 17th to apply. Now let's dive into today's episode.
It's like any other day. I work from home, where the back room of our house is my office/studio, where I have 2 Pilates reformers and treat most of my kinesiology clients and teach some private Pilates lessons. I enter the space after saying, "See you later" to my daughter and my spouse, and I put on my mask. Already, I feel my heart pounding, my breath constricting. I have no desire to see whoever walks through my door. Whoever does come in, I say hello and I ask my usual questions. How are you feeling today? How is your body feeling today? Usually I'm fine. And, same old comes out. So I have to dig a little deeper. How is your back feeling? Last week you were quite stiff and sore. And out comes their story. Breathe, Rachel, breathe. You don't need to carry their pain. Breathe, Rachel, breathe. It's not up to you to fix their problems. Just listen. Breathe, Rachel, breathe. Now the story has moved to COVID. Now I really need to breathe. I don't have the answers, but people keep turning to me. I try to change the subject, or I try to just listen, but I don't want to be here. My chest is tighter. This mask sucks. Thankfully, they can't see half my face, as I know I have a resting bitch face. 4 more clients to go. Each hour feels like a repeat of this. Each hour, my chest tightens more, my heart feels louder, and my anxiety is increasing. By the end of my shift, all I want to do is lie on the floor like a starfish. I want to be alone. I want to cry. I want to bitch and complain. I want to be heard. I feel so small. I feel like a little girl who just wants to be hugged and comforted. But now I need to go into the house and be strong for my little girl and act like everything is okay. I can't go on like this. This isn't fair to me, to my family. My daughter was born a couple months before the pandemic hit. I knew being a new mom was going to be a learning curve, and I knew trying to figure out how to balance my business was going to be a challenge as my life was drastically changing. But this was all too much at once, too many changes at once, trying to juggle my own emotions around being a new mom, a business owner, and then trying to figure out how to run my business in a pandemic and handle each individual's client's emotions and fears. I've always known I was empathetic, but it was truly stopping me in my tracks. Why me? Why do I have to be the strong one? Why do I have to be the decision maker, the rule enforcer? Why do I have to look like I'm happy? Why can't I be angry and sad? It was just draining me, and I couldn't provide any more energy to myself or my family. I felt like I didn't have the time to meet all the needs required of me. Knowing all the COVID protocols, implementing them, spending time with my family, office work, and somehow finding a way to be alone. I needed to do something, so I returned to counseling. I needed to deal with my anxiety. I needed to learn coping strategies. But what I didn't realize was I didn't understand my own values. I didn't have confidence in what I was doing. I had stopped doing me. I was doing for everyone else, and in a way, feeling underappreciated. I needed to figure out where I stood in my values, my beliefs, and have confidence in my actions. I needed to break it down and look at the small things I could do day to day to make my life easier. Building up my confidence once again, I felt like I was walking the walk, not talking the talk. To do this, I needed to create time for myself, to organize my thoughts and understand my values. So I started to journal, truly journal, puke all over the pages, and it has changed my life. I break down my problems, think of ways to solve them, and figure out where to start. Ask myself, what am I thinking? How am I feeling? Why am I feeling that way? One step at a time. I'm building my confidence back up. I'm doing me and being confident in my decisions and actions. They are mine, and they are what I believe in.
Thank you. How did you feel writing that?
Emotional, like definitely emotional. Partially because I was just kind of coming to the understanding of where I stood as I was creating this story. Mm-hmm. And I also around the same time shared this with my partner. So the emotional impact of even telling him was difficult. So it was a lot of like moving through it, like getting familiar with the feelings that I was feeling and recognizing how I felt over the last 2 years, because I don't think I really understood how I felt for a long time.
Yeah.
And that was part of the challenge, was trying to get a true understanding of what was going on.
I find a lot of people, it's not even that, like we just get in the motion, right? We're on autopilot. And I'm sure you see this with a lot of your clients. And I want to talk about kind of the recovery phase of the physical body and just what you witness and see in people with an ailment or pain or something that they're coming to you for versus what true healing looks like. But I think in the last few years, obviously you said you became a mother, like there's a lot of shifts going on and people look, right? They look up, they look to you and they're like, I need help. And it's knowing that it's shifting that identity between I'm the person who always had the answers for everybody else. Now I need to get them to guide themselves to their own answers. And I can't be anything for anyone when I am just realizing I'm so incredibly overwhelmed with everything that is being thrown at me. So what made you specifically like stop and say, I got to turn the ship around? Because I think a lot of people don't even do that.
There was a few things that made me really shift. One, I kept getting mad at my partner. And we've been together for, I think, somewhere between 10 and 12 years. I don't even know. But we had never butted heads like we were butting heads. And it was telling me that something was not right. Because we've worked so well through so many obstacles that I couldn't understand why we were struggling. And like, obviously both of us were brand new parents, and both of us are business owners. So we were both going through a lot. And that was a huge sign, was just the fact that we were struggling with our communication between the two of us. That, and I had a temper tantrum where I went into my gym and I took a medicine ball and I just repetitively slammed it on the ground and screamed at the top of my lungs out of frustration. And he came in because he heard me, and he actually told me that it scared him, because I think he was worried for me. And I just felt like I was bottling all this emotion up and I had nowhere to put it. Yeah. And that's where I didn't want to harm anyone or say anything to anyone. So all I knew was, how could I do this in a somewhat safe manner? And so I physically took it out, and like emotionally took it out by screaming. But those were signs, like those were abnormal behaviors for me. And the fact that I was starting to change my behavior was kind of telling me something. Yeah. And I was crying a lot in the last few years.
That is so huge, because you've heard me say this many times, but behavior is a language, right? So behavioral shifts mean there's something up, and then you became the detective. Well, first of all, you listened to the people outside of you, but you were observing your own behavior going, this is not normal. Something is off. So now let's talk about, I want to bring that to like the human body. You work with, can you explain a little bit about the work that you do with people? And I have some questions.
Yeah, that's okay. So kinesiology, we look at body movement. So how do people move, and trying to correct their movement patterns so that it will help them either progress as an athlete, heal from an injury, or maybe it's just like poor mechanics and they need to get back to work, and the mechanics that they're using at work is a problem, like sitting at a desk. Like that's the typical thing that we see is desk jockey posture that needs to be corrected. So my job is to create an exercise plan that will help someone overcome. I specifically like to work on injuries. I work with a few athletes, but mainly injuries, to overcome the issue that they're dealing with. I really like to work with motor vehicle accidents because I've been in a motor vehicle accident. So I can relate to the emotional and mental and physical aspects of the trauma. And so typically I will see the person, assess them, help design that program. And then they're seeing me on a weekly or twice a week or 3 times a week, however they want to approach it. And we keep going over the exercises and progressing the exercises so that they're overcoming that injury. But there's other aspects that I like to often discuss with clients outside of the physical movement: their nutrition, their sleep. Sleep is a huge one that I think is getting overshadowed. And then as I've been dealing with my own stuff, and it's just popular right now out there in social media, but really dealing with the mental aspect, that mental health aspect. And even the Canadian Kinesiologist Alliance, they're really trying to push the mental health aspect because it does affect someone's healing process.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about healing in general. I'm sure over the years you have seen people who've been determined to heal, right? Yep. They have that, like, whatever you would call it. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'm curious what you have noticed between people who see immense healing versus those who don't. What do you notice about, like, the attributes of that type of person?
Plain and simple, they do the work.
Mm.
Like the people who get discharged the fastest and see the biggest results are the people who go home and do their exercises. Mm-hmm. And they don't make excuses, they make the time. And the people who tell me, like, oh, I've got this, I can't do that, those are the people who really struggle, or the people who rely on me to do the work. So in the sense of, they come to their appointments and that is the only time they do their work. They never do it outside of their appointments. Mm-hmm. So if you're coming once a month and you're only doing the exercises during that appointment, your progress is going to be way slower than someone who's doing it 3 times a week on their own, on top of their appointment.
So what do you notice? So you're inside of the mastery program. Yes. And I'm a huge fan of doing the work. And we also have, mentors and people who are checking in with you weekly. And it's a love-hate relationship because people are like, they're on me again. But it's really this container of space to push you and propel you towards the future that you want. Why do you think people get stuck in the, I don't have time for this, but that they have a desire to recover?
I think sometimes, and myself included, you don't realize the way that you're making excuses for yourself. So, and sometimes you don't recognize it until you're through it. Like, one thing I'm learning is that as my daughter ages, things are constantly changing because she's constantly changing. But then that changes how I handle situations. And what I mean by that is, like, in the beginning, she was somewhat reliant on me in the sense, like, I was breastfeeding her and holding her, but it didn't stop me from doing anything because I could just carry her and still socialize with friends and whatnot. Mm-hmm. But then there became a period where I'm not sure if I used her as an excuse, but I somehow caused it to be a barrier. I can't do that because I'm looking after her. Or that I'm partially because of COVID, I felt like I was stuck in the house. It was just the 2 of us and I couldn't go anywhere or do anything, but I was to look after her. Somehow I created this scenario where I was using it as an excuse. And now that I'm, like, going through the mastery program, and I feel like I listened to one of your podcasts recently and it kind of struck a chord where I was like, yeah, I was using her as an excuse, because there are tons of times where I just do stuff with her. If I need to clean the kitchen, she cleans the kitchen with me. She empties out the dishwasher. She plays in the bubbles in the sink. She partakes in it, but then I'll have something else and I'll use her as an excuse why I can't do it when I could be implementing her into it, just like I did with the kitchen.
Yeah. It took me a really long time to realize I was hiding behind my children because of the cultural, I guess, narrative for women that our children are a burden to our dreams or how we want to feel.
Yes. And I knew I was really struggling with that. That's actually how I came across your podcast. I heard you on another one. And you were talking about that, and I related so much to what you were saying, because I knew that I just wasn't relating to that dialogue. Mm-hmm. And that dialogue, I felt, really didn't apply to me, partially because I didn't have maternity leave. Mm-hmm. Being self-employed, I got back into work about 6 weeks after I had her. So I had to figure out how to make it work. And so I was feeling a lot of guilt. But at the same time, I was like, no, I should be able to work. Like, I have a right to work. I want to work. At the same time, I struggled internally because I wanted that time to be with her. Yeah. And so there was a lot of mixed messaging, and I needed to figure it out.
Yeah. I just had this conversation actually with somebody else, and she's a CEO of a company, and she also wants to start a business. And I said, why do you want to start a business? And she made a list of why to stay and why to go. And the reason to leave was there was 3 points. And the reason to stay in her position as a CEO, there was a lot. And I noticed that the ones that she had on her reason to go were emotional. Like, I want to spend more time with my child. Like, she had a small child. Mm-hmm. And I think most people struggle with that. So, they want the time freedom, but they don't realize that whatever they choose, there's always going to be this duality of, I want to be in two places at once. And
that was the exact feeling.
Yeah. And it's how do I get to be in two places at once? And then people talk about sacrifice. And I'm like, can we just talk about the feeling, right? The feeling mm-hmm. of wanting to be in two places at once, of I have to be here to quote unquote do the work. And then I want to be there with that person. So I don't think there's a way to answer that question. It's more of how do we give ourselves permission to feel it so that we can create a bigger vision with it, if that makes sense. Now that my children are all, I know I'm ranting here, but now my children are all in school, I'm my children need education.
Right.
But yet I still want them home with me, but I don't want to educate them. So right. I was like, oh shit, it's not even about, I just want my children around me all the time, but yet they're gone. And now I just want to be with them. So I'm it's a feeling. It's not actually something I think we can create.
Right.
Physically.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious your thoughts on my little rant.
Well, I think too, there's a lot more to the picture, that sometimes is almost difficult to express. And part of my feeling of working was I felt obligated financially, being a self-employed person. I have to work, I have to pay my bills, I'm responsible to do that. I only get paid by the appointment, all these kinds of factors. But the funny thing is, I originally moved from being a subcontractor and working for multiple clinics to working on my own because it would allow me more freedom. It was supposed to be me and my partner sat down and figured it out. And he was like, you need 11 clients to make exactly what you were making to work mm-hmm. what you were working full time. But when I left and came home, instead of working those 11 clients, I worked 15 hours a day, 6 days a week. And then Sundays spent my day doing office work. I completely ignored that goal of trying to create that space. And then my daughter, I knew that I wanted to develop a lifestyle where I would have the freedom as she ages to be able to participate in things with her. So if she chooses to play sports, I can be there for the sports, but then also have the time to work. And when I went back to work, I tried to jump in 8 hours a day, and it wasn't working. And so I couldn't admit that I was not making those changes. And I think that was one of the many reasons I was picking fights with my partner. Was I was I need this time to work. but that wasn't really what I wanted. And I wasn't recognizing that. And we agreed that I would cut back my hours because I was struggling accepting working. Like I was coming out stressed and like anxious. And so now I work on average about 5 hours. It's probably more like 6 when you consider the background work and stuff, 6 to 7 a day. And it still allows me time with my daughter. And then I structure it so that I take her to gymnastics once a week. And that day I work different hours than my other days so that I can go to gymnastics with her. I get that time with her. And then I go into my workspace. But I think a huge component of it was like I had these aspirations, but I wasn't doing the work to create it.
Yeah. Now okay. I have a question for you. Now, if you just decided I want to be in 2 places at once, but right now I'm just going to choose to be with my daughter, how would that have ended up? If you were like, I'm actually have no financial obligations. I'm set up. I don't need to work for the next 3 years. We're all good. Would there be any part of you that was craving something?
Definitely.
Explain that energy.
I love to help people. That's why I got into this work in the first place. And there comes that like satisfaction when I see someone, when one of my clients tells me how much stronger they're feeling and how proud they are because they were able to reach up to the top shelf in their cupboard, that makes me feel really, really good. But I'm also recognizing that there's other ways that I can do it. Like it doesn't have to be work. I love to volunteer. I am part of a Rotary Club, and doing some of that stuff also satisfies that cup, and I can do it with my daughter.
Yeah. And it's okay if we get a lot of satisfaction from our work. Yeah. But I always see this like this or that mindset, right? So now I want to be in 2 places at once. And what is society going to tell me? Society's going to tell me that I should be. So you're in Canada, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. So I've never gotten a maternity leave because I've always been self-employed, or when I did have jobs, when I had my kids, I wasn't full-time. So we have a really good maternity leave in Canada, like supposed to be paid leave, but that's like not necessarily controversial. But if you're self-employed, you're screwed. You're just fucking screwed.
Yeah.
So, but we have a lot of good legal rights that you can't lose your job. And I think it's up to 18 months now.
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay. So the interesting part about that is I hear, like, I have friends who will go on mat leave, like, oh my gosh, I can't wait, because they hated their job. Right. And then they are spending time with their kids, but then they still lost themselves during that time. And then they re-enter the workforce and they're like, now I hate my job. I've lost myself and I have the guilt of being away from my child. And I'm like, it's not something outside of you that is seeking your attention. It's not a new job. It's not another child or less children. It's something inside of you that is seeking your energy and attention. And it's okay. It's okay to get purpose and value from our work. But when it's no longer sustainable and it's burning you out, that's when we have to shift things. And I feel like in this conversation, I'm sure you see a correlation as we've been talking through the work that I do with getting people to like dig into their emotions and just, still cracking you open. And we all brainwash each other with our expertise. I do that. People are like, Heather. And I'm like, damn it. We're all here to serve each other. But I'm sure you see that in the physical body as well, where people are like, it's this or that. Oh, it's just time, right? I just need
completely.
When this is done, it's like, no, it's a daily habit. It's a daily practice to understand who you are.
Completely. And I always describe it as you have to put the tools in your toolbox. So because my car accident was 12 years ago now, and on a regular basis, when I have new MBAs, they say to me, well, how long did it take you to fully recover? And I'm like, do you want the honest truth? And they're like, yes. And I'm like, I still have symptoms to this day. But the important information that you need to know is I know how to deal with my symptoms. I recognize what they are, and I have to adjust my workouts. I need to think about what I'm doing that day. I'm not going to sit and read all day long because that's going to irritate my neck. I need to think about my posture. I know what exercises I need to do specifically for my injuries. But unfortunately, a lot of injuries aren't going to necessarily be 100% gone. Some people, they're very fortunate, and that's great, but that's not everyone. Mm-hmm. So it's about always going back to those tools and reusing them. And it's like how you say rinse and repeat. It's the same thing.
Hey, I wanted to interrupt today's podcast to talk about our sponsor, Athletic Greens. I started using AG1 about a month ago after they reached out to me, and I thought, let's give it a try. I got rid of coffee. I am like 30 days in with no coffee. I have been on this kick for a really, really long time. And I will tell you, you don't necessarily need to kick coffee in order to incorporate AG1 into your daily routine. What I'm saying is it's life enhancing. And for me, it has been a game changer for my gut, my energy, and how I feel mentally. I've been using it, like I said, for about 4 weeks, and I love it. It doesn't have a super healthy taste to it. It's like a mild tropical taste. And I'm really looking forward to it. With 75 high quality vitamins, minerals, whole foods sourced, superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. This special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, and aging. It does all the things. So what I typically do is in the morning, I wake up and I have my gallon of water waiting for me. Yes, I drink almost a gallon every single day. That's my goal. And I pour my first liter into my mason jar and I add a scoop of my Athletic Greens even before I eat, and I chug it. And sometimes I even put it in the boys' smoothies and they have no idea. Athletic Greens was created when the founder experienced a ton of gut health issues and ended up on a complicated supplement routine to recover. And it cost him over $100 a day. That's ridiculous. And I've totally been there. So he created Athletic Greens after experiencing how difficult it was to create an optimal nutrition routine on his own. It's cheaper than getting all the different supplements for yourself, and you can make it like a micro habit and part of your daily lifestyle. And to make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune boosting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/EU. EU for emotionally uncomfortable. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/EU. Athletic Greens, AthleticGreens. athleticgreens.com/EU. To take ownership over your health, pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. All right, now back to our interview.
I find the biggest challenge I've had to experience, I did this in many other areas of my life previously, and it's always the same thing. And you're like, damn it, always comes back to this. But it was accepting that life and feeling good and becoming is a practice and an art. That comes down to habits, focus, and knowing that the wave is going to come, life is going to happen, but it's the consistent game or journey of, the work, the practice, and also not beating, but developing a new relationship with perfectionism.
Yes. And one thing I keep kind of thinking in my head, but not saying out loud, is I noticed too, that when people come in and talk about their injuries, and a lot of my clients also tell me their life stories, the more that their life is impacting them, the worse the injury feels that day. Mm. So if they're super stressed or anxious or had bad sleep, that correlates with the way that they describe their injuries and their pain levels. Mm-hmm. And also, if you look at the person's perspective on life, like we all know those people who are like Debbie Downers versus like the happy-go-lucky kind of people. Mm-hmm. Those people describe their injuries differently, even if it could be the same.
Yeah.
And so their perspective, and I think that the big thing is a person's perspective of the injury and their likelihood to overcome it. So even sometimes I've had to work on language within the space. Like, it's one thing to be like, shit, this is hard, versus I can't do this. Like, I've actually threatened people. If you say I can't one more time, I'm going to find something to make you not say I can't again. It's like a huge pet peeve of mine, because it's like, you're not even trying. If you try, you will eventually make progress. But if you just keep saying, I can't, then the progress isn't going to come.
100%. Yeah, I can resonate with this a lot. Yeah, it's like a double-edged sword, because I remember when I was going through recovery, and there was a lot of physical elements to it, but realizing what I say is failure wasn't an option, and failure to me just meant quitting. It didn't mean perfectionism. Like, perfection did not exist in my definition of failure. It was just every day I needed to get up and I needed to do something, whether that was going for a walk or whatever. But I remember there would be times where I'd have like intense bone pain or just nerve pain. And I wanted to fall, what I would say, victim to the pain. And I had to look at it and be like, you are not going to define my day.
Right.
And what can I do about it? And that took a lot of mental energy and perseverance to do that. Okay, so let me ask you this question. During your story, you were talking about like, why do I have to be the strong one? Which is probably why we get along and you're attracted to my message. Why do I have to be the responsible one? So growing up, I'm assuming you had to be the strong or responsible one.
Yeah. So when I was younger, my youngest sibling, my brother, had a very rare immune disorder, and he died when he was 8. So I was 14. So during the process of like him being sick, I felt very responsible for my sister, who falls between the two of us. Maybe, I think in her eyes, maybe a little overprotective. But I was the responsible one. Like, I just felt like it was my responsibility to have good grades and be a good girl, because then my parents didn't need to worry about me. They could focus on my brother. I felt like I had to be the caregiver when my parents were at work, because they were both shift workers. There were times when I was old enough to kind of look after my siblings. And I think, I know for a fact, like since then, I had different thoughts of the type of caregiver I was going to be as an adult. I was going to find the cure for my brother's disorder. I was going to be a doctor. I was going to be a physiotherapist, anything that would treat people. And so it's kind of just been in me since a young kid. And yeah, feeling responsible to just be perfect so no one had to worry about me, I think is kind of a way that I would word it.
Interesting. So I could very much resonate with this. Obviously a different story, different background, but I feel, and I'm sure a lot of women and men, whoever's listening to this, can identify, putting themselves like, who did we need to be as children? And then we grow up to be that as adults. And in your story, you were talking about, I don't need to carry their pain. I don't need to fix them. And becoming, I always say I'm in recovery as a rescuer, right?
Yeah.
That fixer. What's your relationship with like that now? Or what is your relationship like now with that inner fixer, inner rescuer for people, right? When we're in a caring profession, wanting something more for somebody than they want for themselves, maybe. And was there a moment when you were like, holy crap, like I'm bringing my childhood into this?
So there's definitely, it is a work in progress.
I was going to say, you're like, oh shit, Heather, you just told me that now. This is the moment. No, I'm just kidding.
It is a huge work in progress because I'm even thinking to yesterday, but I think one thing I'm learning is how I present myself. So if I can present to my clients facts and reassurance, because I do the work. You actually had referred to me the tapping app, and I tried it and I shared it with a client. Mm-hmm. And so when I can, and I think they appreciate when they see that I'm going through the journey just as much as them. Mm-hmm. So yesterday, that's how I started the conversation. I said, I was thinking about you this morning, and I'm trying this new technique. Would you be interested in trying this with me? And it opened up a can of worms because she unloaded a lot. But I felt comfortable being in that space, like I wasn't taking it on. Yeah. But I also felt like it was very healthy for her because she felt safe that she could do it. Because part of her story was that she didn't feel safe sharing it in the first place, but all of a sudden she's unloading. Where there have been times my entire life, I finish work and I just cry for people. Mm-hmm. And I feel their pain so much that it's making me emotional now. Yeah. That I don't know what to do other than cry for them.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a double-edged sword. You talk about being empathy, right? And I find a lot of us, I feel like we're not mean people. People can say, oh, I've always been sensitive, or I identify as an empath or highly sensitive person. And I think in general, if, you have a heart and you are a caring, loving, kind person, we do feel the energy of others. And it's like, how do we manage that energy? How do we feel that pain, but not let it bring us down? I feel like that's a mission of mine and something I've really been working on in the last few years in general, because I see so many of us, the world events happen. And it's like, how can I celebrate or go be me when there's another war happening, or when that this big thing is going on? It's like, but how does the world benefit from you joining that energy? How do we,
and putting your life on hold?
100%. How do we rise above that energy? And that is the leadership of embodiment. And it's everything has the light and the dark, the blessing and the curse, right? It's like an injury. My son has a knee injury and it slows him down. But I also am a little bit grateful because I'm like, damn, if your knees were at full function, like that knee is going to always keep you in line. That knee is, the second you decide you're a little too confident or a little too cocky, it's just going to be like, beep, beep, let's just pop out of socket a few times.
Yeah, it'll keep them in check sometimes.
100%. And so when we're here with our bodies, listening to our emotions, listening to our symptoms, like our physical symptoms, instead of judging ourselves of like, oh my gosh, I just want to help. I just want to, like, I'm feeling all the pain. It's like, it's a blessing and a curse, and we have to manage it.
Yeah. I think too, like, clients recognize that you care for them, but at the same time, I can't fix their problems.
Yeah.
And it's a big thing for me to recognize, because when you see how many people a day, or even just communicate through email, you can't solve all their problems. You can't do the work for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's where leading by example is the biggest thing.
I always say to people, I can hold the belief for you. That's my job. Like, you tell me what you want, I will hold that vision for you, and I will keep tapping into you. But I cannot show up on your doorstep and get you out of bed every day. And if I did do that, that's wild codependency. But if I did do that, what are you going to do the second that I leave?
Yeah.
So we have to face our shit. We have to be the ones to say, I don't want to do these exercises, but I'm going to. And that, to me, that's what emotionally uncomfortable is all about.
And I think too, part of it is also not creating really high expectations. I think a simple, well, it might be simple, not be simple, but a simple comparison that we often see in the fitness industry is nutrition. People create these expectations of their diet, and they make them so strict that you can't even follow it, because it's just like, you went from like not giving a rat's ass what you ate to all of a sudden you're going to eat like a rabbit. How do you think that you're going to even get there? You can't from one meal go to the next and just think that all of a sudden you're going to receive these results.
That's it. That was my journey. I was like, I had to give my nutrition coach a lot of pushback, because before I started, I was eating a huge bag of chips on a nightly basis. This was like amongst like the most stressful time in COVID. And then it was just like the next day, boom, this is what you're eating. And I was like, I'm still eating chips, and I'm not fucking putting them in my macros. And that's okay.
I even had a trainer myself who, like, they tried to put me on a vegan diet, and I was secretly like eating burgers in the background and not telling them.
Yeah. 2 years. It's interesting though, 2 years in, with the consistency, the imperfect consistency, seeing the results that people want, but knowing in the back end, you're like, if you only knew how messy this process is to be perfectly inconsistent, you would see how easy it fucking is if you're willing to just stay on path.
Yes.
Yeah. And let yourself be human.
Yeah. And just thinking like of all the small steps, like, if for me, nutrition wise, if I had to pick a thing that I, maybe am not the strongest in, is drinking water. And like with doing mastery and doing the morning routine and doing, my ETM, it seems silly to me to write water, and I lay out my workout clothes and I put my water bottle beside it, and water still continues to be an issue because, well, this morning's a perfect example. I forgot to set my water bottle out. So I actually have not had a thing of water. And when I say water, I mean plain water, because I have a habit of drinking lots of herbal teas, lots of coffee, BCAAs in my water. And then with a mask, over the last 2 years, my water intake has significantly dropped, because to take the mask off and drink when a client's in the room, I feel very guilty. So I like have a sip once an hour when that client's gone, and I have 10 minutes between clients to clean and go to the bathroom. That's when I have my sip of water. So, but I continue to try and like write it in my ETM. I continue to like try my best to put it out the night before. That's the biggest thing, is if I put it out the night before. So I forgot last night, which is why I didn't drink my water this morning.
It's mind blowing. And when you think about something like that, like it would be easier for people to sell a quote unquote weight loss program than it would to be like drink water consistently program and watch your health transform. And people want these big results, but they're not willing to do the basics and just master the basics because it's not sexy, right? But you're like, it's actually not, I'm not saying it's not hard. It's just retraining the brain for these micro habits. And water is not the issue for me. It's always remembering to eat, because I will undereat. I'll just plow through my day. And I've had to work through some big resistance when it came to the physical exercise, like just physically moving. But when I do, I feel like a magical unicorn. And I'm like, what the hell is this? So I just stopped judging myself. And I'm like, just do it. Just show up. Let it be gross and messy. And I'm like, oh, got that off. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think too, when people set up plans, and we see this with exercise plans, is that people also don't follow the steps. They'll look at the steps and they go, I can do step 6 from 1 to 10. So I'm going to start at 6 instead of 1.
Yeah.
And some could argue that that's reasonable. And I, specifically with exercise programs, I'm like, method to the madness. It might feel easy, but that's what I want it to do, is make it feel easy so that when you progress and you increase your program, by the time you get to step 6, instead of it, you starting there and being like, oh, this is hard, it actually is easy.
Yeah. I find, I didn't want to cut you off, but I find you get to a certain point, I guess, in your level. I feel like you get to a certain point where you surrender and you're like, tell me what to do and I'll do it.
Right.
Like I tell people, I'm like, I want this result. I trust you. Tell me what to do and I will do it. Yeah. And I remember having that, especially when I was in my recovery, because I was like, I completely surrender. I am not a fucking oncologist or a freaking naturopath. If they tell me to rub cat shit all over my body, I will rub cat shit all over my body. And it's like, it's really about that surrender, letting go of trust, or trusting and letting go of control.
Yeah. And I think sometimes it's nice to have confidence in someone else too.
Yeah.
I don't do my own programming. My partner does my programming. And it's nice for me because I program for so many other people, to have someone else do the work for a little bit. Like I still have to do the exercise portion of it. I still have to get in the gym and do it.
Yeah. It's just nice when someone's outside of you, able to like, be like, okay, this is where you want to go. And they'll challenge you. We need each other to do that.
Exactly. Yeah.
So Rachel, where can people, I feel like, well, we got to wrap it up because we could talk forever and ever, but this conversation has been, I know I'm going to get a lot of people being like, that was great. I love it when they have these, candid conversations about, life in general and really reflecting on their own physical health. Cause I know that's what you're about. So where can people find you? I know you're on Instagram.
Yeah. So people can find me at Return to Form Kinesiology. And you spell kinesiology, Kinesiology. And I just kind of post about my life or exercise tips, depending on what I see with my clients, or just general health and wellness tips. And lots of people just like to really watch my daughter and all the silly things she does too. So
I love that. People are always like, yeah, you put kids up there and it's like, I get more views on the kid ones than I do when I'm giving like this really insightful tip on how I can help their health.
100%. And that's exactly what people want. They want to see my daughter lifting her little fluffy kettlebell versus me swinging my kettlebell. So
love it, love it, love it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather.
No problem.
There it is. You just listened to the Emotionally Uncomfortable podcast. If you want to take this conversation to the next level, head on over to our private Facebook group community, heatherchauvin.com/Facebook. My last name is spelled CHAUVIN. That's heatherchauvin.com/Facebook. Also, if you are a huge fan of this show, please rate and review it on iTunes. Every review helps another woman like you take back control of how she wants to feel and become emotionally uncomfortable. I truly believe the better we feel, the more alive we become. This is how we are going to change the world. And if you've been watching me for a while, if you've been on the fence and you're curious, how can Heather help me? Head on over to heatherchauvin.com/work with me to check out my mastery and mastery business coaching programs. That's heatherchauvin.com/work with me.